Hey folks, this is Lucid, and we are going to be doing an intervention video. And this is going to be for a position which a player just abandoned a game. Shame, shame, shame on the player for ghosting. But we're going to take the opportunity, and we are going to do an intervention video for it. So how I am thinking this is going to go is... we're going to kind of talk through I haven't even looked at this before. We're going to talk through the position. We're going to talk about the nation. We're going to talk about the position we're in and kind of my understanding of maybe what some good next moves might be. And then probably somebody else is going, I don't really have time to play another full game right now. And then somebody else will probably play it. So, yeah, let's talk about the nation. We can see I think it's turn 22. So we're probably not terribly small. I think we can tell like Marignan, for example, is bigger. And I don't know how big all the other players are, and I don't know too much about the Diplo. So this isn't going to focus as much on the Diplo. Let's talk about Caelum, though. So if we look at the nation, flying cold resistant, partially shock resistant, prefers cold 3. We have mammoths. Nice. We have ice forts, which are stronger in cold climates. And a lot of our guys get guardian spirits. Now, early age Caelum is notable for having Earth and Eagle Kings, and they can do cool stuff with that. Late age Caelum is notable for death access, and I think the early age also has some death. I don't know if this one does. I'm actually not super familiar with the nation, but this nation has big air, so they've got. Let's go through. So the High Seraph is not cap only. You can get these in every. So here's Caelum. The High Seraph, we can get these in every fort, I believe. Yeah. So, Recruit Anywhere, Air 4s. That's like almost the Queen of Air. Like, Air 4 is so GD good. They're expensive, and they're expensive in a few ways, and we'll talk about them. They're 255 gold, which is a lot, but not a lot for the paths you're getting. And we'll talk about what each of these different randoms can do. But they're not sacred, so you're going to have a fair amount of upkeep from them. But, I mean, these guys are phenomenally useful. So, first, let's just talk about the things that these guys can do. All of these guys can do mass flight, which you're like, Caelum, why would you ever want to do mass flight? Well, you have mammoths. And 10 fog warriored mammoths that are flying around stomping shit are reasonably effective. They're going to kill a lot of things that your little pokey birds can't poke. But mammoths are expensive. You're not going to want a ton. But anyway, I'm just putting that out there. They can all do Storm. And then Wrathful Skies is going to be a bit beyond the normal ones. You're going to need to be Air 4 and then do summons. Or no, actually, they can all do Wrathful Skies. Yeah, because they Storm power if somebody else does Storm. And then, yeah. So, okay. They can all do Storm and Wrathful Skies as long as they work in tandem. And yeah, by that logic, they can also all do Fog Warriors without any boosters. That is so nuts. The number of armies you can field, I think, is mind-boggling. And the amount of air gems you can spend is crazy. Because, and we don't really, I haven't even looked at my research. God, our research is god-awful. Holy shit. This is really bad for turn 20. But yeah, I mean, air gems are like crack for this nation. I mean, having Recruit Anywhere Air 3s that can drop, like, Living Clouds, which is an extremely effective spell, by the way. Especially if you're fighting stuff without magic weapons, because, you know, the ethereal and all. And then you drop Fog Warriors on them, and then you have these ethereal things, which are only taking, you know, 1 chip damage. Pretty good. But all this stuff takes... I mean, you can... There's a Baal's Guide or Baal's Guide, depending on how you say it, that's really good on early age Caelum. It's called Ride the Lightning. And I think he has one maybe on one of the elf nations. But one of the analogies I'm going to borrow from him is he says, think about this nation like a capacitor, right? And you fill it up with charge, and then you can unleash it in a moment. And that's what these air gems are for this nation. You can Cloud Trapeze, you can do Air Elementals, you can do Storm and Wrathful Skies, You can summon Great Eagles for more siege strength. There's a ton of stuff you can spend air gems on. And, I mean, you really have unlimited capacity. I hope I'm driving this home enough to spend air gems. Like, the amount of air gems you can spend, it's even more than the number of times I've said that. That's how much it is. Okay, next. So more than half off, we get a Air 2 mage with 1 water. Now you may say, well, what can I do with Air 2 and water? Well, they can all do Thunderstrike, right? So these guys are all Thunderstrike spammers. And notice not holy. Coming over here, we've got these guys who are notable for Forge bonus, which means really cheap water gear. The other thing of note is with the hammer, you can do a 2-gem forging of a water bracelet, which means that this guy then becomes water 2, which means he's really efficient at frozen heart spam. Or you can put it on these guys for basically free. You know, by the time you're paying 255 gold, a 3-gem item to get this guy up to, especially if they're the water random, right? You get them basically for free up to water 4. And water 4 is, pretty high water. Like, you can be dropping Liquefy in combat, which is like a super combatant killer, which, now you're not going and fighting Caelum thinking, oh, I need to bring high MR gear, because they're not really a super high MR check nation. But okay, now we're dropping Liquefies. Yeah, okay. And Liquefy, if I recall, is also Alteration. Yeah, it's Alt 8, which you have good reasons to go Alt 7, not as great a reasons to go Alt 8, but it's not too far out of the way. You're probably also going to be going Evocation, but anyway. I mean, depending on the situation, Falling Frost. And then, yeah. Water is a pretty good path. Grip of Winter, all that stuff. Super trivial for you to do. Okay, back to the nation. And then we have the Sarafine. And the Sarafine is just H1, but stealthy. So this means you can put Dom pressure around. These are about the same cost as an Indie Priest. And they have basically the same upkeep as an Indie Priest. Some of them are going to be fire randoms, which is super useful, because I think this is like basically your only fire access on the nation. Yeah. So anyway, super useful to get fire just so you can site search. And you'll probably want to get a few of these. Next up, we have the Storm General, just an 80 leadership dude. We have these guys, 60 leadership dude. And then we have these guys, who's a scout. Now for the troops. We'll work our way right to left. We've got the Mammoth, 120 gold, super expensive. Very low MR. And this is going to be the main deterrent from using them in like mid-late game for the applications I discussed. Especially if you're up against the Nature Nation, that when the mages go off script, they're going to look at this guy and go Charm Animal. And so if you're using them, especially against an Astral Nation, you're going to want to, or an Astral or Nature Nation, you're going to want to make sure you have anti-magic. Otherwise, it's probably never worth bringing them. But if you can get anti-magic on them, and especially if you're not fighting like an Astral Nature powerhouse, having these guys with Mass Flight, like totally worth the gems to drop a Mass Flight on your mostly flying army to get like 8 or 10 of these empowered. It's actually kind of hard to get Gift of Flight, like the AoE 1 target ability, to hit them. But Mass Flight, you're guaranteed. And yeah, especially once you hit like Fog Warriors and stuff, these guys are going to be coming in. Now, in theory, you can also just summon air elementals. So it depends a little bit on what your gold situation is. But if you're fighting stuff with magic weapons, air elementals are not going to be as great. But these guys, especially with the protection buff, are going to be fine. And their protection's actually okay. But it's a little bit, I think, okay. On one hand, it's a little bit of a critical mass, because you have to imagine your guys surround a portion of the army, and then like 10 elephants come in and proceed to just run down the line, squishing literally everything. So you want to have enough, because you want to have your killiness. Like, your elephants are going to get surrounded and killed. So you want to kill things faster than things are surrounding your elephants. But you're also surrounding them. So, especially, and this gets into how to play Caelum. Caelum is the god of the strategic map. Right? Their troops aren't necessarily the best in a combat. And if you're like, hey, we're going to have a fight on 92, bring all your troops. Like, Caelum, and both people prepare, Caelum's probably not going to win that fight. But that's not how the game is played. The game is played on the strategic map, and you don't get to tell MA-Caelum where to move their troops. And so, if you are able to force concentrate greater than your opponent, you're going to have way more troops than they do, obviously. And so some of those troops will be utilized just surrounding an enemy, because there's more surface area on the outside than surface area on the inside. Kind of. I mean, you have more units on the surface area of the outside than you have more units on the surface area of the inside. So anyway, you need more troops to get a full surround as MA-Caelum. But then you have these tramplers that come in and are going to disrupt formation, which is going to give you... It will make you able to better utilize the numbers advantage you have. That's what I'm trying to say. You can also fill this role with air elementals. So you don't have to bring these guys, because they're also size 6 tramplers. These guys are also useful for expansion. And the other thing is, sometimes it's nice just having 1 or 2, because I was like, you want critical mass. But if you get hit by a thug that's not size 6, that's like immune to cold and lightning, sometimes they just need to meet an elephant or 2, and that will soften them up. We have Blizzard Warriors. All can only recruit in capital. They're sacred and have a bow weapon, so potentially if you want to take a weapon blast or something, they could benefit. And then you have these guys, the Temple Guard, and they can only be recruited in the capital. They have Ice Protection 2, which means for each cold scale you get 2 protection, and it applies to the armor, not to the natural protection. So anyway, it's going to be +6, so they're going to be 23 protection in cold 3, which is a lot. But it's going to not be very mobile, so they're not really going to be gods of the strategic map. Yeah. All right, and now we're going to get into the real meat and potatoes of the units, which is not the cap-only sacreds. It is these guys. Storm Guard. So what is notable about them? 8 built-in shock resistance, which is very, very high. And then cold resistance of 8 also, which is also high. Ice protection 2. So these guys are going to be 20 protection in cold 3. They don't hit quite as hard as the Temple Guard, but they're piercing, which is a better damage type than slashing. So yeah. Their upkeep's going to be somewhat comparable. These guys are 20 gold with the upkeep of a 10 gold unit, while these guys are 15 gold. Slightly more upkeep. But they're going to be able to keep up with your army. They don't hit super hard. Next up, we have the Ice Clad. Ice Clad again, 2 protection and 15 gold. And these are 17 protection. So these guys are going to be even stronger in cold scales. They're going to be 23 protection. So they're basically kind of like the Temple Guard flying. They don't hit quite as hard. These guys hit 1 harder. And they also don't have shock resistance. So when do you use one versus the other? Well, if you're going to be putting up Wrathful Skies, which in my opinion should be a target for most major conflicts, you're going to want these guys. And these guys you have to think about when is Wrathful Skies like the real timing. There's like army trap timings, which are early, but like the real timing is when you can do Thunderfend on your army, and these guys are going to jump up to 13 shock resistance. Especially, and you'll have this also at the same time you get Thunderfend, mass regen, if you can drop that on like your main stack. Because then you're going to be taking like very, very minimal chip damage, like 3 to 4 damage a shot from when you finally get hit by one of the Wrathful Skies shots. And then you'll regen that up pretty quickly. Nobody will die from it. Meanwhile, the enemy, especially if they don't have Thunderfend, is going to be taking 15 plus shock damage. And if they, that's if they don't have Thunderfend. But if they do have Thunderfend, they're still going to be taking a very significant 10 plus damage, which is a lot more. So, and then the other thing is you don't have to worry as much about Thunderstrike collateral with these guys, because Thunderstrike actually, they has the main high damage attack, which will still kill these guys, but the AoE around it, which is like a stunning fatigue damage, these guys are going to be immune to it. So in my opinion, in the for mid-game wars when you're not really worried about magic, you may want to use these guys. But pretty quickly as the game shifts later, you're going to want the Storm Guard. Because that 1 extra damage will matter when you're in a slap fight in the late game. These guys still don't hit that hard. It's like totally slap fight material, but it's 1 more damage. Alright, next up we have the Aria Infantry. These guys hit a little harder, but again, kind of wrong damage type. Cold Protection 1 rather than 2. So these guys, even in Cold 3, are going to be a little squishy. And then we've got the Wingless, who are cheap. They have an Ice Lance and Snow Move. I don't know. They seem kind of like hot garbage to me. Notably, all our troops are good at sieging. So siege strength of 2. So all very efficient at sieging too. And that's a very important part of playing Caelum. Next, we have the ubiquitous Spirehorn Warrior. And these, in my opinion, are like the... these are like the defining unit for Caelum. Not for middle-aged Caelum, but just for Caelum. Like if you say Caelum, I think Spirehorn Warrior. And what is special about them? They're not terribly well armored, but they have an Ice Lance, which is a good weapon. They're storm immune, so they can fly in storms. They have shock resistance and cult resistance. And they are easy to mass. So, with these guys, you can 1-turn pop forts super easy. They have a siege strength of 2. I mean, the amount of fort turns it takes for you to get a 1-turn popping, like an army that can 1-turn pop forts, is ridiculously low. And unlike other nations where your good siegers, are going to be like slow lumbering units, like a sapper or something, you guys have like amazing strategic mobility. Okay. And then we have this guy. Now, let's look again at who is... Yeah, this guy also... Stormguard also has storm immunity. A lot of our other guys do not. So if you're going to have storm up and you want your guys to still fly, which often you do, but sometimes you don't, if you don't want them to fly, you can use, like Ice Clad or something that doesn't have shock resistance. But I don't think there's any troops that have shock resistance but not storm immunity. Yeah. And then we have the Spirehorn Archer. And what's interesting about storm immunity is I think this is how it works. For ranged attacks, you don't get the precision penalty, but you still lose a significant number of the arrows on the storm. So you're going to be better than other archers, but still kind of garbage. There is an argument to be made for archers. If you do archers, you forward position them in an army. Okay, he's actually got a lot of archers. So you would put them like this. And then your guys fly in and they're going to encircle the enemy, and then these guys shoot in the middle. And you can put up wind guidance stuff. When is that going to be good? It's going to be good against stuff that doesn't have a lot of protection, which means it's going to fall off really freaking hard. And we are about through the normal units. Now we're going to talk about research. What are the big timings? Well, Evocation, so he's got that. So Storm and Thunder Strike and Summon Storm Power is one of the major timings. This means you can now do Evocation Death Balls. And it's going to be very hard for things to handle it well. The other major timing, and I don't know if he's going for it, not really yet. I don't know what he's doing like the light construction work for. The other major timing is going to be Alt 7. And then maybe like getting some enchantment after that. But I mean, that's the major one. Like Fog Warriors is such an important timing. So, and I have to think about the nation more before I like fully decide to abandon construction. I don't think there's a ton of value for us in construction. And then Conjuration, there's some things, but like being able to summon big air elementals is kind of a big deal because there's some things that's going to be the most efficient counter for. So I think like where I'm standing on research priorities right now is, I guess this allows us, we can do budget thugs with air and water, but they're going to be super budget. And we can probably get by on construction 2 gear for that because they're not going to be that good anyway. And we can maybe barter and trade for any other gear we would need. After that, probably worth getting up to Conjuration 5. And that's just so we can do big air elementals, because honestly, they're just so good. We may also want to make a detour and get enchantment 4. And that'll give us Cloud Trapeze, and this way we can pick off raiders with Cloud Trapezing air elementals, which we can do like an insane amount of. Though we can also kind of do that with, it's an enchantment, Seeking Arrow, which is only 3. So we don't, we get to have our choice about how we are going to execute that. And enchantment, what does it take, 4? Seeking Arrow, 3. Yeah, so all of our big, powerful mages can cast Seeking Arrow, which means we can potentially even pick off super combatants with it, which is hilarious. But again, maybe your eyes are starting to open, and you're going to see just how much you can use air gems. So those are basically going to be the priorities. I think this is going to be covering the basics for us, and then we're going to haul ass to Alt 7. After that, we probably make a play for Thaumaturgy and try to get Galegate, because Galegate is kind of a little game-winning for this nation. Most nations, it's a very meh spell, because you don't want to rush it because it's in Thaumaturgy, and not many nations want to rush Thaumaturgy. And then air gems for some nations are kind of hard to make super great use of, but for this nation, ooh. All right. So we talked a little bit about research priorities. We talked about the nation. Let's talk about matchups. So this is Middle Age. So we got Middle Age Marignon. They are eating Zabalba, and it looks like we helped a bit. So one low-hanging fruit is just taking this from Zabalba. They've also got a lot of crossbows. So if they're going to fight us, we are going to need to think about Arrowfend. And then Arrowfend is... I always forget where Arrowfend is. It's enchantment 6. So that is out of the way for us. And enchantment was kind of low on the totem. But we have Storm, and Storm is kind of a poor man's Arrowfend. And I think we also have Mist. And Mist is another kind of poor man's Arrowfend, and we're flyers. So we kind of counter crossbows. We kind of counter them pretty good. They have Knights of the Chalice. I don't know what anybody's blesses or anything. If they don't have magic weapons, then Fogwars will wreck these guys. In general, I think we're a pretty okay matchup against Marignon. Their crossbows are going to be garbage. All we need a way to do is to kill the Knights. If their Knights have magic weapons, then we really have to worry about it. We'd have to use things that trample, really. Once they start getting any buffs online or whatever, because Knights are just way better troops than the Caelum stuff. But their Mage Corps, their Archers, we'll be able to kill them pretty well. The things we have to worry about versus these guys are things like Firestorm. But one of the nice things about rushing Alteration is we have high water. So for us, Warriors of Niflheim will be very good for fighting these guys. It means we can survive things like Firestorm pretty well. But Dominion is going to matter a lot. So getting this and maybe getting it forted and getting this throne, I think, are the short run objectives rather than just rushing into a war. Elves, probably one of the best things for us fighting elves actually is going to be Seeking Arrow. Because we can just kill their commanders. And their commanders don't have a ton of HP. They're stealthy, so if they sneak, we don't catch them. So that's kind of a trick. But they have no idea where we're going to be, and they look kind of big if they've got something up here too. But and with Caelum, because we're flyers, we're more flexible in terms of who we war than another nation. Because other nations, you have to be more concerned about geography. For us, we can kind of get around pretty quick. So it just matters whether we have enough troops that we can route efficiently to defend. It doesn't necessarily matter we're 3 turns away from a fort. Okay. Anyway, Vanheim is a tempting, tasty target. And I have no idea who owns what, but I'm going to go ahead and assume, and I've got to actually do this turn. I'm going to do probably this turn, and then we will leave others for others. But I think what we want to do, here we've got a bunch of Lion Tribe for some reason. Archers are going to be okay against elves because they can pop Glamour, which is pretty annoying. And it's hard to thug against magic weapons too, is Mannheim. So Mist Form's not going to matter, and a lot of times they rely on that. And they have to have a lot of shock resistance to be able to deal with Thunderstrike, or even just up close with lightning bolts coming down all the time. take a look at our God and our Bless. We've got missile range. Oh God. Combat Farcaster would be nice, but like all our mages are not holy. So, like we have no holy mages, so I don't know. And we don't have Astral. This guy does. So I don't know what he's thinking with the Combat Farcaster thing. Maybe he just wanted to have a cool Titan. Now this guy, though, is capable of super combatanting. Especially if we're not fighting an Astral Nation where we have to worry about Magic Duel. So, okay, that is a reason, potentially, to go a little higher in construction. Let's take a look at what we can forge right now. Oh, we're not even construction 2. So, we'll get construction 2, then we'll see what we can forge. But, like, the water stuff's going to be cheap. I know we're going to be able to get, like, a coral sword. And so, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, just make this guy where he won't be able to die. And, okay, that's the reason for going alteration. Is we'll be able to do fog war. I mean, mist form and mirror image if we wanted to. But then like personal region, I think we have that queued up. That'll be here at enchantment 2 or 3, and then body ethereal would be nice. But again, it's like, do they have magic weapons? But that would be like alt 4, which right now I've got put down. So. Anyway, I guess that's what we'll head for as our next objective, is kind of make sure this guy can super combatant. Oh, we get just a smeck. We haven't really talked about the paths on our main mage. So we get air, which is obviously the best. We get water, which is nice, because it's nice to have some of, but it's nothing to get too excited about. But anyway, the waters you should, at least later, be thinking about them really as water 4s. And then astral. Like, if you're fighting an Astral Nation, you're worried about Magic Duel, these guys are like, they're your only Astral Mage and they're Astral 1 and they're 250 gold. So they're like prime Magic Duel targets. So think carefully before bringing them. But, on the other hand, if you need to get like anti-magic up, these guys can do it. They power the spears, they take a short little nap, maybe for like 1 turn, or maybe they have just enough fatigue where they don't take a nap. And then they can cast anti-magic the next turn. It's going to take 3 pearls total. The death randoms, kind of hot garbage. There's a few things they can do. They can do corpse constructs, which are like useful chaff, but it's a very expensive mage to be making corpse constructs. They're your only death mages, so they're going to be doing your site searching, so dark knowledge spam. Like, we need to get out. I don't know if we've site searched at all. Yeah, we haven't site searched much. So, like, this is the time in the game, I think, where we want to go out and site search air and death, and water. But we want to get death and start priming the pump so we can start spamming out dark knowledge. So the thing is, air death is a super useful cross path, but these guys have trouble doing it. Now, there is a trick I learned in one of my most recent games that we can do with these guys, and it's going to solve a few of our problems, and it's going to make the death ones pretty good, but for this we actually need to focus on priming this death pump. The trick is with this, and actually this would be a reason to potentially go, I don't think the timing, we might head for construction 4 after enchantment 4, before we finish our march up alteration. And the reason for this would be getting a skull staff, which I believe is construction 4. And then with the skull staff, this guy can twiceborn. And you're like, okay, well, so what? Well, the Caelum twiceborn is not bad. It's not great. But it's able to thug much better than the base chassis. Much, much better. And we'll get rid of the old age penalty, and we're going to get rid of the upkeep. All these are good things. So if you have a huge death income, you want to be twice-borning probably almost all the death randoms. And then additionally, some of these are going to come back. I think it's like 20% of them will get an extra death path when they twice-born. And if we're doing it to a few of them, which I think we would want to, that's a significant amount. And that'll be... Now, the one question is, how do we do a skull staff? And I have no idea how we're actually going to do that. So that's one of the reasons it's not going to be a priority for us. But maybe I can trade for, or maybe the player who's going to play this can trade for it. I don't think I'm going to be able to trade for it right away. But so it's going to be a little bit of a longer run payoff, But having white mages who can Cloud Trapeze and can do quickness and mist form and stuff, and then go in and murder stuff, and then liquid body, they're going to be very capable anti-thug units, like SC killers or whatever. And they're not great. Like, I mean, and you have to kit them to kill SCs. They're not like obviously a better chassis than an SC, but this guy with the right gear can Cloud Trapeze and potentially kill SCs. Can definitely lay waste to non-magic weapon units. And even things with magic weapons, potentially you can do mirror image and defense stacking if it's not a terribly scary force. Or you can just have this guy go in conjunction with people summoning air elementals, have him buff up, and then finish his buff about the same time the air elementals are jumping in. He jumps in and starts nailing people. If you have access to Earth Astral and you throw, because this is your only Air Death, and Air Death is a super valuable cross path, but it's not valuable when you're only Death 1, very much. Unless you're doing corpse constructs, which these guys cost too much to do. So, but anyway, if you can get yourself a crystal matrix, you can then use the astral randoms to be your community slaves. This is expensive, but we're already really far in evocation. We can do things like Wind of Death, and we can do whatchamacallit, Wailing Winds. And for example, Wailing Winds, what do we need to cast at? I think it's Death 4. So we need to get up to Death 3. Communion would, if we only have 2 people as slaves, which for this kind of application you'd ideally only use 2, but 4 wouldn't be too bad. That would get us up to here, and then ideally a Skull Staff gets you to here. So this guy with 20 gems worth of gear, a Skull Staff, and a Crystal Matrix can allow you to cast a spell which will can significantly change the course of battle. Just saying. So anyway, that's kind of stuff we can do. Now, this, again, late age Caelum is going to be much more heavy into death if you want to do some of these things, and that's kind of like the nation where I'm borrowing this Twiceborn trick. That's how I saw late age Caelum getting played. So anyway, that's that. Now, what would it, if we have to go have a pitched battle now, what would it look like? We bring in one of these idiots, cast Storm. We bring in all these idiots, have them do Storm Power and spam Thunderstrike. And it's pretty scary. And the nice thing is, because we're so mobile, we can only move 2, but 2 is a pretty long way. We have a lab here. Anyway, you can move your mages pretty quickly and then get them back to a lab. So it's not as big of a time commitment to bring all the boys. There are some things that are definitely worrying here. Like, why haven't we taken this? We have a lot of indies around us. This is highly unusual for turn 22. So I think what we do, if I were playing Caelum, now we're talking about kind of strategy for the strategic map. We want to get the thrones, we want to get the indies, and then after that we have to pick our war target. But first thing is we have basically 4 free provinces we can get. And we need to plan on bumps on all of them. Less so here. Potentially we could come kill Asphodel. Depending how many troops Asphodel has and how hard they're thugging. Because Asphodel actually has decent troops, but if we catch them before they have research, we could do some horrible things. I have no idea what naps exist. But I'm kind of inclined to take easy wars and kick these guys back in the ocean. The problem is we could potentially get seduced on the edge with Oceania. But it's only it's like a 1 underwater province Oceania. I mean, it's a small ocean. And right now they're not going to want to mess with us. So I don't know. Maybe this would be probably the easiest war going in this direction. But also it's going to be fraught with some hardship. But potentially if we get a good water income, we can actually go underwater. Because, we can forge underwater gear. A lot of the lightning spells actually work underwater. Or the air spells. I don't know which of Yeah, I think... Yeah, so Orb Lightning works underwater. One of the things is underwater, it's actually hard to kill units. Like, there's not a lot of, like, mage killy stuff underwater. Like, a lot of the battlefield-wide stuff doesn't work. Like, Wrathful Skies isn't going to work. But Orb Lightning does. Thunderstrike doesn't. But anyway, Orb Lightning is a really good spell. And then we have good water mages, too. So we could potentially spam out water elementals. I mean, you have to remember, all these guys, because they have the water forging bonus, they can all make... I mean, okay, these guys here. Not these guys. These guys here, right? They're super cheap. They're 45 gold. If we get and there's a big if we get a big water gem income, we can, with a hammer, for 3 gems each, we can make a water lens and a water bracelet, which means you can turn each of these guys with 6 water gems into a size 6 water elemental, because they do water power summon large water elemental, and then they'll spam Frozen Heart as a water 3 mage. Pretty okay. Pretty okay. I mean, that is, I think, an extremely cheap... Okay, well, no, you're going to also have to have a Shambler skin. So, and which is also going to be 3 gems. So, in total, if you're going underwater, in total, you're looking at underwater a net cost of 9 water gems to get a water elemental and then a water 3 mage. It's not ultra cheap, but I would say it's pretty efficient. And it's efficient enough where if these guys pissed me off and I had a big water income, I would consider it, especially if this like looked like a convenient war. And I would need to have better scouts over here to know whether I think it's worth pissing off an underwater nation and taking their stuff. The seduction stuff from Oceania is probably like one of the scarier parts. If you're on a coastal province, you really have to worry about seduction. Marignan in some ways is an obvious target because now they're kind of my neighbor to the north and south. But because they're also a 2-cap nation now, it would make sense that that we find a partner in crime if we're going to go after them. This would be a super awkward war. Vanheim is another target. How do I think we would match up against Vanheim? I think in general we would match up pretty well. Elves don't really like being completely surrounded. Elves like having a nice line where they don't get surrounded and they get to not get a harass penalty and they keep their defense high and then therefore glamour stays up for a long time. They're not going to like being surrounded by flyers. And we're also going to wreck their shit when it comes to air magic. Like we have way more cost efficient air mages. Like these guys are 410 gold for an air 3. We pay 255. Now ours isn't sacred for an air 3, so way cheaper. And then we also have a ton. Like where we're way cheaper is the air 2s. Our air 2s are like 125 or something, and there's a 275. So we're gonna win that battle, and we have shock resistance built in on our troops. So I don't know. Yeah, look at these guys. So Vanheim, I would say, is an okay target. The main thing with elves is they're going to be very weak against magic stuff. So unless they have shock resistance 15, I think we would crush Vanheim. Especially once we have Seeking Arrow up, where we can pick off like Van Thugs, like trivially pick them off. We have a huge air bank too. So yeah, it would be disgusting. And especially if we have Conjuration 5, you'd have to test that because Mist Form and other things and High Defense are normally okay against air elementals, but I'm pretty sure like 3 air elementals would wreck a van, which you would normally, I think, just want to Seeking Arrow them because it's going to be cheaper. But if you want to steal their gear, because maybe we don't have very high construction, we need some stuff for our god, we do that. This also looks like they have Crystal Amazons somewhere, which I think we would literally kill people for Crystal Amazons. So, okay. Short run plan, go after the Indies. Maybe try to take the lake. Get this. Medium run plan. Get some scouts over in these parts of the woods. Find an ally to go against Marignan. If not, plan on going on Van. So I think that's it. Now, if you want to tune out, that is fine. We're going to end up playing. So that's the intervention part. Now I'm actually going to go play this turnout, which I don't normally do in an intervention, but this game needed a sub, and I said I would do it for like a turn or two and do an intervention video and see if anybody's interested in picking it up. I don't have the time to do like a full game right now, but Caelum is a really fun nation to learn. I think if you're a new, like Caelum is a great nation for people that understand basic Dominions mechanics and are looking to get into the multiplayer scene, because there's not there's depth, but there's not a ton of unnecessary complexity, and there's not a ton of traps. Like, a lot of the stuff for Caelum is pretty freaking good. And we probably want a better general, so we're just going to take what we have here. We're going to bring all these idiots, and in case we bump... Oh, shit. I think what we're going to do... Okay, we've got these ice clad. And the other nice thing about attacking Vanheim is they're cold, so we'll be mostly immune, especially if we bring like our ice clad. They're going to be immune to elves. Like, the elves are going to tickle us, unless they have some kind of crazy weapon bless. So I think what we do here, I'm going to plan on bumping Van. If we bump Van, then we're going to do Storm Power. This is going to give my guys a chance to run in and attack. Storm, this should come up after they've landed. And then Thunderstrike. And we're going to position farther forward so we have pretty good aim. It's only 40 barbs. Yeah, we should light them up. And these guys will just be on Storm Power and then Thunderstrike. And let's see. Okay. Interesting player, has no spells scripted. This is one of the things you'll get. So, anyway. That's okay. 3 gems. Well, I'm going to put it on conservative gem use for this guy. I'm going to give him 6. That way, if we bump Vanheim, I'll have enough gems to kill him too. And I think it does make sense to bring the archers here. Because, you know, why not? Barbs have no protection. Our guys have some. We'll probably lose a few troops. Let's look at recruitment. Spirehorn warriors. I do like Spirehorn. We have let's look at our income situation. We've got a fair amount of money. Our troops we're going to need enough troops to pop forts. I think I want to be making sure, if we go to war with Vanheim, these are the units you're going to want. I mean, the shock resistance is going to be pretty good. What's the resource difference? 3140. Okay, these guys are a little cheaper in terms of resources, so I think we'll go after these guys. And we'll just make sure we have all our forts making them. How much protection are these? They're going to be 20. So not high as 23, but I think for elves it's fine. Just tap this out. If we're going to be dropping Thunderstrikes, we're going to have our guys all around. I think it's worth having the shock resistance, and they hit a little harder. Okay. All of our forts. Now, if we're in the stretch, this is because I'm preparing for a war, right? So I'm preparing for war, and I don't know with who. So we're going to make the high resource units. If we get into like a dirty slap fight, I'll make these Spirehorn warriors in a hot second. Like, I mean, I'm not going to think twice about making them. But whereas we are not desperate yet, or we're not about to be desperate for units, I'm going to be a bit picky. And just make the high resource ones for now. Can we not make 2? The hell? Okay, we'll get a couple of Spirehorn here to tap up recruitment. And I think, how much does this guy cost? There's a bug in the game where These are 3 resources, so we'll just get rid of this last one and we'll wig out. Okay, this one we can keep. I can get a few more Spire Horn here. Okay, I'll do that. I'm not against Spire Horn, I just want to be tapping out recruitment of the other. Okay, so that's that. We have a bit of money left over. We're building a fort here. It should be up this turn. Let's go ahead and make sure, in case we get attacked, I do air elementals. And we've got 10 PD. Let's take a look at our PD sitch. Let's get 6 everywhere. And yeah, we're in a pretty good spot now. So we're going to build a lab. Looks like he had prepared. And we can start getting mages. This will be enough forts for us. We're not going to need more forts. I think where the next forts we get are going to be enemy forts. Over here, we've got these idiots who are going to be really good against these heavy cav, which are down here. So we're going to come hit them up. And again, we're going to kind of generally prepare for bumps. We've got these idiots here. How many do we have? Okay, we've got mammoths and Spirehorn warriors. Okay, there's no PD here, and this player is fucked. So I think we attack. And I think we'll just do the MA-Caelum way here, where it's just hold an attack rear. I can't remember how they do if they're combined with line units. There's some way to get them to march and not fly. Maybe it's fire closest? I can't even remember. These guys don't have great morale. We'll just try this. I don't actually know what happens. One of you is going to know and be embarrassed. I'm a little embarrassed I don't know, but whatever. What I do want to bring, I think, if I can, is I want to bring a few more mages, or like at least one mage. And this guy's just going to drop some... The attack list. Okay. I have no idea how well that's going to work. Worst case scenario, the mammoth runs back and kills all my commanders. So let's move these guys to the side. Okay. Hopefully that works. Oh wait, we have a fort down here too. Shit. Oh, yes. The strategic mobility. Hold an attack rear. I'm liking this. Guard commander. Okay. And then here we're going to do Sermon of Courage, and then... Okay. So anyway, something like this will work. Now, we do need to get a mage down here as soon as possible. And we don't really need a lot of temples. One thing I think we should experiment with is trying to keep our dominion as much as we can, especially for now, with preaching. So we've got a lot of preachers. We probably should use them to preach, and like especially getting these thrones. And then some preaching. We can save some gold, especially early on temples, and build up an armies, a little bit more quickly for our first conflict here. We should also be upgrading this fort. And we're going to need a general too, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to upgrade it with a good general. Because I'm going to need him later. And we're going to go ahead and start getting Spirehorn. And we'll get not Spirehorn. Stormguard, and we'll get a few of these guys. And then I think that's actually... How much does this guy cost? 36. Okay, it's probably going to mess up my resources. Site search. The other thing I said we were going to do, and therefore we shall. Oh man, I've got a lot. I need another death random. Okay, let's get one of the expensive mages. Here we're getting the super cheap mages because we're trying to get resources, I guess, is the thinking. Which I'm okay with. We have magic 1. I think we're gonna spend a lot. We have money, so I think we're gonna spend it. I want to site search death. We want to roll a few more of these. We're gonna site search death when we land here. We're gonna have to make a plan for pinging this throne too. I wonder if we have a scout I can get. Or some kind of indie commander? Not really. We'll have to ping this throne and see what's here. This is a little scary to me. We're going to need, like, everybody. I'm not very excited about taking that. This looks much easier, because, like, the Spring Hawks, especially if we have shock resistance, we'll do okay against. So anyway, we'll have to figure that out. Our god, potentially, he's got shock resistance 24. We could potentially send him in, and he could solo this with a basic amount of research, because he's going to be completely immune to Spring Hawks. Like, they're not even there. They're going to actually surround and protect him while he kills shit. He's size 6, so we don't have to worry about air elementals. They've got a Nuki of the sky, so it's going to be air magic. So fog words we're not going to care about. I think we give him some gems. He can solo this. So we'll need to ping this, though. We need to get... Okay, we'll get a Barb Commander here, and we'll ping this next turn. And once we have construction, which will be soon, this turn, we'll probably make some weapons for our god, and then maybe some kind of gear. I think we can... I forget what armor we can make a construction to. Probably not much that's very good with the paths we have. But that'll be the fate assigned to us. But even then, I think with very, very basic gear, we can probably take this out. Ideally, I get some reinvigoration gear. Like, how do we have a nature income? We don't. Honestly, this guy should probably be out site searching until we find it. Like, especially find these forests, because we have no nature. Like, him researching is great and all. Barkskin. If we get attacked by barbs, I think I want him to ditch. Yeah, okay, let's just have him retreat if we get attacked. And if he dies retreating, I don't want him wearing stuff. So we're going to go site search the woods for nature. We need a little bit of nature income to help him super combatant, but I don't know when we'll do it. We'll need a couple turns, I think, to prepare him. But once he's prepared, he can run in and probably kill this. And potentially he could even kill this. So anyway, we'll see. But anyway, I hope you have enjoyed the intervention. And it will be too late for you to volunteer to take this. But one of you who's watching this was probably the player who did volunteer to take up this sub. Subbing is a great way to learn about a nation that otherwise, it didn't suit your fancy, but you might not have known how cool it was till you actually try it in a multiplayer game. So anyway, we'll see you guys.